Today we're delighted to tell you all about the product updates that we've made over the last 6 months or so. So yeah, let's get stuck in. First of all, just a bit of housekeeping. Your camera and microphone will be turned off throughout the session, but you can ask any questions at any time using the Zoom Q&A button. So yeah, feel free to pop them in and we'll try to address as many as possible at the end of the call. If you also just want to stick around for a chat in more depth afterwards, I can stick around for a few minutes after the call and have a discussion. And if you do need to drop off, or if you want to share the recording with your colleagues later on, then the recording will be available on our YouTube channel a few days after we finish today. As always, we also have a feedback survey for the webinar. So this is the first time we're actually doing a product update webinar. So it's even more important to us to hear about what you thought of the webinar and how we could improve it for next time. And if you even want there to be a next time. So yeah, do make sure to fill out that survey at the end of the webinar as well. But first of all, you might be wondering who I am. I'm a bit of a new face on the webinar scene here at LandApp. Normally, you're used to Dan's dulcet tones. So I'm Jack. I'm the product lead at LandApp. So my role is essentially working very closely with our engineering team to try and prioritize and figure out the best solutions for all of things we can do to make the product perform even better for you. I've been at LandApp for around 1 year. I was working previously at Just Eat. So if you're not familiar, a large company helping kind of people order millions of takeaways every year globally. So I'm hoping to bring some of the experience I learned from a mature tech organization to LandApp and try and help build LandApp into a really fantastic digital product. Yeah, I've really enjoyed being at LandApp since I started. It just feels so inspiring to be part of this sector. I think land management is so critical to society and the environment. So I've really enjoyed getting involved, getting stuck in, and I am still learning a lot. So whether it's just trying to listen to Farming Today every day, probably my top listened podcast now, or trying to binge watch the latest season of Fluxus Farm, or doing something a bit more formal with like a farm ed course. And also, I really enjoyed recently in the summer attending Groundswell and meeting a lot of you and um, having a chance to see everything that was going on in the industry. And it's really, yeah, it's really cool and exciting. So I'm happy to be here and be part of this um, sector. And I think also just by speaking to all of you, I've learned so much as well. So I've had conversations with a number of you, whether it was at Groundswell or just on calls or through Intercom. And yeah, I think it's been great to learn how you're all using the product and the exciting things you're trying to achieve. And I think ultimately my job here at LandApp is to try and serve you, our customers, as best as possible and make sure that the product is meeting your needs. So that's what I'm here to do at LandApp. So moving on to the agenda for today, the first thing I wanted to take you through was some of the smaller, most requested optimizations and improvements that you've been asking for that we've addressed. But then I'm also keen to get some input on what the next ones we should be tackling are, because we always want to be kind of having a constant ticking over of improvements to just make the kind of basic quality of life and the usability of the product as good as possible. So I'll go into that, but then I'll shift over to some more significant product updates that we've been making in a few kind of themed areas. So first of all, how are we helping with funding scheme applications, followed by the developments we've made in introducing new data layers and downloads, and also how we're supporting land management at scale through our portfolio summary feature. And lastly, and for me quite excitingly as well, the LandApp mobile developments that we've been making to make mapping in the field even easier. So first of all, the most requested features. Since I joined, I've kind of been trying to look back through all of the comments we've had over time and try to pick out some of the quick wins we could make to make the product better for you all. And I just want to take you through a few of those changes that we've made now. So if I switch over to LandApp. First of all, I just wanted to show you a change to the listed buildings data layer. So if I head over to the data layers panel and enable the listed buildings for England and Wales, you can see that rather than having a series of grey dots, we now have some color-coded dots just to make it slightly easier to identify the different grades. So purple for 2-star, blue for grade 2, and orange or red for grade 1. So that should just make it easier for anyone using this data layer to quickly eyeball what's going on in that area. When you're creating a new plan, we've also now, so let's say I'm making a sustainable farming incentive plan. We've also now made it a lot more easier to just make it clear which land registry parcels you're actually selecting when you're using this feature. So you can see the halo is now there, and it's very clear which land registry parcels I've selected for this plan. So if I carry on and finish that, I can demo a few of the other features. One thing that was requested for a long time was it was quite challenging to deal with plans that had features overlapping and selecting the right feature. So what we introduced was a change that if you click in the same area with an overlapping feature, you can now toggle easily between the features. So if you're working on a plan that has overlapping features, that should make it a lot easier now. We also added a slight improvement to how you can manage the length of a 2-point line. So previously, if you wanted this line to be exactly 100 meters, you would have had to kind of try and get it there, which is quite challenging. But now we've added this box on the right-hand side. So if you just type in 100 there, it will automatically be a 100-meter line, or however long you want it to be. Editing attributes also required a few clicks before, but we've made it a lot more streamlined for how you can quickly add a description or edit any other attributes. So you could see that when I clicked on that, it instantly opens the text editor and I can start editing with my keyboard immediately. And also we've been trying to improve the keyboard shortcuts. So if I now click Control Z, you can see that that description has disappeared. So yeah, keyboard shortcuts should hopefully make mapping a lot more quick and easy as well. And you can see with this overlapping one, if I press delete on my keyboard, then that's vanished as well, and Control Z brings it back. So yeah, kind of simple quality of life things, but I think really important if you're using the software a lot to be able to do these things with a bit more ease. In terms of, again, like selecting multiple features, I can now use the left-hand panel to select multiple features. So if I hold Shift, I can then click along the left-hand panel and select things as well as selecting from the map. So if you do have a need to select multiple features like that, then you can use the left-hand panel to make it slightly easier. And we've made some small improvements as well to the printing, because we received quite a lot of feedback about dashed lines. So if I make my 100-meter line now a dashed line, and maybe I also want to assign that to one of my SFI actions, so I'll make it a hedgerow assessment. If I now proceed to print, let's make this a bit smaller. And I focus on that dotted line, and I add a legend. You can now see that the dotted line should be reflected in the legend there, and also the code is also showing automatically, whereas it wouldn't have been previously. A lot of people having to add the codes themselves. So yeah, that's a few of the smaller changes we've been making. And we also have some plans to introduce some more control over the data layers and the transparency of the data layers, because currently they're set on a particular transparency. And also we're looking to introduce a grid overlay as an option as well, if you need to use a grid, because we get a lot of requests about that as well. And now I want to try something a little bit experimental. What I've done is I've built this board, this kind of a suggestion board of and I've kind of collated a few different suggestions that we've had, quite popular ones, and put them in there. And what I'd like to try is if you could all go to this board, and it allows you to essentially upvote and downvote the different suggestions and also add your own. And I'd love to get your input in this kind of like live interactive way and see if you can help me to prioritize what should come next in terms of these smaller quality of life improvements. So if you can scan the QR code or go to suggest.thelandapp.com, and the password is webinar, and that will take you to the page. I think it will also be shared in the chat in a moment if you want to just click that. And that will then, if I switch screen again, that will then take you to this product ideas board, and you can try to upvote. It will ask for your email address, and the reason for that is simply so that if we do implement this change, then we can easily get in touch with you to let you know that it has been addressed. So yeah, yeah, it's a bit experimental, but it'd be great if you could all sign into that and have a go at browsing through the different suggestions there and voting on them, on the ones that you think would be beneficial to you. You can also add a new suggestion. There's categories you can pick from, such as mapping, collaboration, data layers. If you just add a quick title that helps explain it to me and to the other people, that would be great. But if you do want to add a attachment or description, then that would also be great. And when you're browsing through the list, you can also check out the different categories. So if you're particularly interested in data layers, you can see some of the suggestions that are already there, and vote on those. So I'll give it 5 minutes or so and see if we can see some movement on here and see what ends up rising to the top. But yeah, do message in the chat if there's any trouble getting onto it, or if there's any confusion over what the things mean. I should also take this moment to plug a larger survey we're running. So whilst this is focused on some of the smaller quick win improvements we could be making, we're also trying to get a greater understanding of how everyone's using the product at the moment and what bigger changes you'd like to see over the next 6 to 12 months. So if you haven't already, do take our bigger survey, and there is a chance to win a £150 voucher in a prize draw if you do submit something to the survey. Cool. So I'll just go on mute now and give it maybe until 18 or 19 past, and we'll go from there. Thanks to those who added some votes and some suggestions. I'll leave that open for a bit longer. I know some people might need a bit longer to think about what you want to suggest. So yeah, I'll leave that open probably till the end of the day, and then I might close it just to see what the results are then. So yeah, thanks again, and yeah, I'm keen to see what's come up there. So moving on to some of the more significant product changes we've been making, one of the key areas that we've been focusing on is how we can support you through funding scheme applications. And we know that that's one of the core reasons people are using LandApp. So of course, in summer, there was some announcements around the new expanded SFI offer, and we responded to that by introducing our SFI 2024 template. So if you are using or if you are looking to put together an SFI application, that template will allow you to easily understand the different options you can select from and the payment rates and essentially the total value of the plan that you can create. And we're also in our standard subscription trying to add a little bit of extra intelligence into this as well through some validation tools. So what these validation tools do is kind of just try and help you stay within the rules of the different schemes. And essentially, we're trying to minimize that back and forth that might happen if you submit something to the RPA that hasn't necessarily ticked all the boxes or crossed all the T's. So yeah, using these tools could hopefully shortcut and help you address a few things on your plan ahead of submission, and yeah, just minimize that back and forth. So These tools, what they're looking at mainly is, first of all, they're looking at the boundary of your plan and whether it matches what the RPA holds in their database. So using your SBI number to make sure you're not out of bounds there. And they're also checking the actions that you selected against the land use eligibility, because a lot of the actions are specific to certain land use types. So you need to make sure that if you are selecting one, RPA needs to have the land use as an eligible one for that. We also check the plan against different data layers. So for example, against SSIs and also registered parks and gardens, just to see if there's any constraints you need to be aware of there with your plan. And with the recent SFI changes, there's also a lot of actions that can be co-located or supplementary to other ones. So what our SFI validator tool does in particular is also checks for any incompatibility between actions that you may have layered on top of each other. And then there's also the limited area rule around certain actions only being allowed to take up 25% of your plan. So we also validate that that's not being exceeded either. So let me now quickly demo this one to you. I do think this one's really cool. So yeah, I'm keen to show it off. So let me switch over to LandUp again. So I've created, let me zoom to this one here. I've created a example SFI, probably not very realistic, but good to show off the functionality. So you can see I've used the SFI template to select the manage woodland edges over here action, and then I've got a low input harvested cereal crop here. And then on my field down here, I've got managed grassland with very low nutrient inputs. And if I use the handy feature to toggle through overlapping polygons, you can see I've also put some bumblebird mix there, which we might realize is not the wisest idea in a moment. Over here, I've got a large supplement of lenient grazing on top of my take grass and field corners out of management and my managed grassland with very low nutrient inputs again. And then I've got a buffer here as well. And the way that I would validate this plan is to go to the toolbox functionality. And there's lots of very cool things in here, so I do recommend checking it out. If I click the three dots on my plan, I head over to the toolbox. I can then click the SFI validator tool. And what that does is basically generates a plan with feedback about my plan based on the different criteria I mentioned. So I've already done one earlier. So if I have a look here at the plan that was returned, we can take a look at some of the issues that have been highlighted in red. So if I look at the low input grassland and scroll down, I can see that it's telling me I've got an overlap error here. So this should not be co-located with AHW1. And if you refer to the guidance on the government website, they have the list of compatible options here. And so we've basically looked through the website to make sure that we've applied all these different rules in terms of co-location. If I go back to the errors again, another error I've got here is that I've accidentally exceeded the boundary of my SBI number. So this field I made slightly too large, and that's actually outside of the boundary. So I should correct that and make that fit within the boundaries of my plan. And then over here, we've also got a land use error. So we can see here that my AHW10 is not allowed on permanent grassland. And then I've also got a warning about the registered parks and gardens data layer. So it's telling me I could do this, but I would need to get a heifer before I can proceed. And we'll also tell you if there are actions that are ineligible as well with certain overlaps. I think that covers all the errors worth speaking about here. But yeah, I think that's super powerful. So if you are putting together an SFI plan, I think this could save you a lot of time. So yeah, I'd highly recommend checking that out. Now back to the slides. So The other template that we've recently introduced in relation to funding schemes is the single application form for Wales. So we are looking to support funding schemes all over the UK, and yeah, we've added that one now to help you access funding in Wales. But also we will be keeping close tabs on all of the developments in the devolved nations, and try and get templates out as soon as possible once we have uh, a clear definition of what those schemes are going to look like. And then lastly, another kind of way of generating income is the biodiversity net gain scheme. So we've introduced some new tools to support this as well. So if you are putting together a habitat plan, you can use our estimate biodiversity net gain tool to work out the units and the potential uplift from a land management plan as well that you create. And then we also have a way to take that data and start you off with the BNG metrics statutory tool, the spreadsheet. So it can take your plan data and automatically start to pre-populate the the statutory spreadsheet. So I would just add a caveat though that we don't recommend these as an alternative to an ecologist. You definitely need to get an ecologist involved in using these tools. It's just kind of to help you get a bit of a head start and see what might be possible. But ultimately, if you're going to be engaging with BNG, you do need to be using an ecologist. If you do want to learn anything more about sustainable farming incentive and CS and how we're supporting that, as well as BNG, we've got two previous webinars that focus specifically on one on SFI and CS and one on BNG. So do check out our YouTube channel if you want to learn more about those topics and how we're supporting them. So moving on to our new data layers. So we know that the data layers that we have on the platform are super popular, and we're always keen to kind of add more. If you have a request for one, our ears are open to that. So yeah, we're always trying to grow the data layer library and give you access to what you need. So just a few of the ones we've added recently are in the access category. We've introduced the OS open green space access points and sites. So this just helps you to be aware of publicly accessible green space. Within the designations, we've introduced less favored areas and moorland lines. And this is around kind of like farming difficulty and understanding that across different parts of the UK. The national character areas will give you insight into the different landscape profiles, again, across the UK, across England. And I think actually the other one might have been England only as well. Yeah. We also have the registered common land data set, so you can see what land is common. And we have the SSSI impact risk zones, which are used by local planning authorities to understand when they should be consulting with Natural England. In the habitat section, we have three new data layers that should help to support you with woodland creation or agroforestry, with the low sensitivity map for UCO and the full sensitivity map, as well as the SFI agroforestry data layer. So yeah, these just kind of all help understand the potential for woodland or agroforestry on a particular part of particular bit of land. And we also have some wood pasture and parkland BAP priority habitat data layers, or just one, which shows you the mosaic habitats, which are quite valuable. In the historic section, we have the Historic England Heritage at Risk Register, which shows historic buildings that might be in need of safeguarding and conservation. And we also, in the landscape section, have these countryside stewardship scheme management options and areas data layers to help you see existing land that's under management in countryside stewardship and what's being done there. In terms of water, we've introduced the flood map for planning flood zones 2 and 3 for Wales. So it's now possible to see areas that are at risk of flooding or coastal erosion in Wales. And we've also introduced the source protection zones, which relates to areas that supply water for human consumption and are used to kind of prevent contamination and pollution of those. We also have another way of seeing quite interesting data sets, which is our data downloads functionality. And one of the things we've introduced to our data downloads functionality recently is the slope identifier tool available in our standard subscription. And I'd love to show you a little bit more about where you find this and how it works, because I think some of you could find it quite useful. So I've already made a slope identifier plan here, but the way I do this is I go to new, download data. This is where all of our data downloads are housed. And you can see there's quite a few in there, but if I look for the slope identifier one, I can use this to basically create, analyze the slopes of a particular bit of land, either by using an existing plan boundary that I've created or creating a new frame and using my SBI number. So I've made a plan here, which you can see the output of. So essentially, it kind of just shows you the degree of slope on your land. If it's blank, it means that it's a very, very low, almost negligible slope. The pinky one is a low slope, so 2 to 3 degrees, and then moderate for 3 to 7, high for 7 to 11, and the very dark red represents above 11 degrees slope. So this is really useful for understanding where your land might be at risk of soil erosion through slippage, and a myriad of other use cases as well. Let's switch back. And now I'm also very excited to tell you about our portfolio summary feature. So we've been working with a number of you to figure out how we can better support people to manage land at scale. And this portfolio summary feature basically allows the aggregation of all the maps and data you've created so that you can analyze it and generate insights you might not otherwise be able to get. So for those not familiar with the map of maps, that's a data layer that we offer, which can aggregate the different maps you've created in our standard subscription. But for our professional subscribers, we've now taken that to another level where you can view the map of maps along with summary tables of the plans in that map of maps. And that allows you to see the total area and value of your portfolio broken down by the different feature types that exist within the plan templates. And in order to kind of deep dive and drill down into different things, you're able to filter by map name, feature type, team tag, and we also have some data layer filters so that you can see all of the data that intersects with a certain parish or local planning authority, for example. For those interested in BNG, you can also use the portfolio summary to export data in bulk to the BNG metric calculator. So if you have multiple baseline habitat assessments, you can export the data to the metric calculator in bulk using the portfolio. We're also very soon going to be releasing the ability to export this data to Excel, and yeah, the team are actually beginning to work on that from today, actually. So let me give you a quick demo of this. Yeah, I'm quite excited to show it off. First of all, for those not familiar with the map of maps functionality, the way that you publish a plan to the map of maps and also to the portfolio summary is with this button here, this little tick. So you can see here, I have already published this SFI 2024 demo to my organization's data layers. And if I wanted to add another one, I could click there and do that. And that should be reflected pretty quickly within both the map of maps and the portfolio summary. The way you access the portfolio summary is up here on the right. In the navigation here, you can access the portfolio from there. But I've already got one open, so I'll just head over there to, a bit of a spoiler there, to show you this. So first of all, I just want to show you the summary page. So what this page allows you to do is see all of the clients, all the different maps that you have, and what their kind of status is, I suppose, for the different templates. So for these 3 clients, for example, I've been working on a sustainable farming incentive for them, as well as a baseline habitat assessment, and I've published those. So you can see what kind of projects you've been working on for the different maps. And just to point out, I've currently got this filtered to my team, my product demo team. So yeah, if you want to just focus on what your team's working on, if you're part of a larger organization, you can also use the portfolio for that. So if I now head to the Sustainable Farming Incentive tab, I wanted to just demonstrate a use case around finding out how much income you may have generated for your clients via SFI, and which of those actions have demonstrated, or which actions are the ones driving the most income. So first of all, if I head over to where my maps are, you can see them here. I've got these are the three that we saw. So I've got my three clients all around the Guildford and Godalming area. So that's my map of maps. And if I scroll down, I can also see a table view of what's kind of contained within these plans. So I can see all of the different actions aggregated. I can see how many in count those are. So like how many different fields or so on are inputted into that action. I can also see the payment rate, and I can also see the total value that that's delivering for this portfolio. And if I scroll right to the bottom, I can see also a total. So I can see that I'm generating 68,000 for this set of SFI, these sets of SFI plans. I can also see that in terms of total value, it seems like this low input harvested cereal crop at 65 hectares is delivering the most value here. So yeah, just a way to understand a bit more on aggregate how your data is shaping up from all the different SFI plans you might be creating for your clients. And if we switch over to the baseline habitat assessment tab, we can see here again that I've got the three plans, and I'm able to filter this on a variety of things such as local planning authorities, river basin districts, habitat catchment partnerships, parish boundaries, and counties and unitary authorities. But for this purpose, if I'm looking at B&G, I might be interested in which of these clients is within a certain local planning authority. So if I filter by the Guildford LPA, I can see that that's then removed one of the plans or graded out, and you can see the two remaining are here. And I can then scroll down, and my table is also adapted based on the filters. Also, I can click on one of these to see exactly which one it is. So if I want to just browse by map, I can also see, oh, this is client B, and I can go and click on client B to go to client B's map. So yeah, that's the portfolio summary. And yeah, we'll always be happy to talk more if anyone's interested in finding out what this can do for you. Now, onto the thing that is probably my most proud achievement since joining LandApp. We've really had a focus on how we can level up the mobile mapping experience, and I think we've made some really good progress, and we're still planning to make more progress yet. The first thing we kind of unlocked was the ability to start collecting geometry data like points, lines, and polygons in the field, and also manipulating them a little bit as well. So if you use our general data collection template, you can go to the mobile app, start a survey from scratch using the general data collection template, and then you'll be able to draw points, lines, polygons, and those will then be reflected as a plan on your map when you get back to your desktop and look at the website. You can also operate it kind of another way around, which is if you have a plan that you're really keen to like ground truth and see on the ground, then you can take a plan that you've made on the website, you can duplicate it into the general data collection template, and then when you go to your mobile app, that will be there waiting for you, and you'll be able to see the boundaries and the different features that you've created there. We're also really excited that we've been able to support with hedgerow surveying. So we've worked with the People's Trust for Endangered Species to implement their Healthy Hedgerow Survey within our mobile app. So if you head to the mobile app, similar to the general data collection template, you're able to start a healthy hedgerow survey, draw some hedges, and collect vital data points such as the average width, height, and also the condition, as you can see on the screen, according to the Adams hedgerow management cycle. And similarly, you can take an existing SFI plan that you might have made, find all the hedges on that plan on the website that you want to submit to the assess and record hedgerow condition action, and then you can duplicate them into the hedgerow survey template. And then when you go to the mobile app, all of those lines will already be there waiting for you. You don't have to draw them yourself. You can just go through and collect the condition for the ones that you've already submitted to the scheme. And in relation to the healthy hedgerows, I thought I'd plug another one of our data downloads. And these are really cool. So again, I would recommend heading to the data download section on the product and exploring what you can do there. But one of the ones we've introduced is the Ordnance Survey field boundaries. So this is a data set from Ordnance Survey with different field boundaries, as you might suspect. And what we've done is allow you to bring that into LandApp. But also, if you do bring it into LandApp, we'll create a healthy hedgerow survey automatically based on that data and pre-populate some of the data around average width and height. But we do recommend going into the field still to validate that. It's just to give you a bit of a head start. One thing that I'm also quite excited about is that we're starting to bring some of the kind of more sophisticated mapping and drawing tools into the mobile app, starting with the split feature. So it's now possible as well on the mobile app, if you notice that your hedge has significantly changed condition, for example, from one point to another, you can now draw a line on the map to split that feature and then have two separate features that can have different conditions. Or if you wanted to take your draft SFI plan into the field with the general data collection template, you might be able to slice off a few field corners that you wanted to dedicate to something else. And I know that the key thing that everyone's asking for is when can we kind of edit any plan and get out of this sort of duplication and mobile friendly template concept. And we are working on that. So yes, at the moment you have to copy plans into these mobile friendly templates, but we'd love it in the future. And we are working actively on it to make it so that if you created an SFI plan on the web, you'll just be able to view that and edit that directly in the mobile app. So yeah, that is the direction. And yeah, we're hoping to have some significant progress on that by the end of the year. I'm not going to demo this functionality today, but we did have a very good previous webinar on our survey functionality. In fact, I think we have had two in recent months, one about the general data collection and one about the healthy hedgerows, which was also with the People's Trust for Endangered Species. So lots of great knowledge and expertise shared there. So if you do want to learn more about how you can use LandApp Mobile, do head over again to the YouTube channel and check out past webinars on that. So that's all I have for you today, but I think we've seen some very exciting developments from the kind of general mapping and printing improvements that hopefully make your day-to-day usage of LandApp much more easy. We've also seen some new tools that we've introduced to support funding scheme applications and yeah, try and make that even more efficient. We've also seen 15 new data layers that we added, along with 2 new data downloads in the slope identifier and the OS field boundaries. And we also saw how the portfolio summary can make managing your land and your portfolio at scale much easier and insightful. And lastly, my pet project, the mobile mapping, and how we're making that, how we're making it possible to take LandApp into the field and really use LandApp for all of your mapping needs. So as I mentioned at the beginning of the call, I am here to serve you ultimately, our customers. So please do share your feedback with me via voting on the board and completing the survey that we are doing at the moment with the £150 voucher prize. And there will also be a survey at the end of the webinar to give us feedback on how you found this webinar and whether you'd like to see another product update webinar in the future. And lastly, I'm always open to receiving an email or with any suggestions or trying to jump on a call and chat through how we can help make LandApp better for you. And in fact, we'd be keen probably to do some outreach in the future. So if you do see an email from us asking to chat to you, please please respond. So yeah, keen to chat to lots more of you more often in the coming months as well, and make sure we're on the right track with the product. But yeah, thank you, and we'll move over to the Q&A now. Let me open up the Q&A then. It looks like a lot of them have been answered.
Hi, Jack. I'm happy to join you
Yeah,
on some of those and just get started with the Q&A. So I've answered a couple in the answered section that I think could be handled, but probably the first one just to pick up on was Ross asked, when you've had an identified issues in the SFI plan, how easy is it to make the changes to fix the issues? Is it done from the issues layer or is it done from the original one? And
yes.
so I've answered that in the chat, but ultimately the issues is just the reference layer. Please update your original plan. LandApp doesn't want to change your data because it's your responsibility and ownership to look after that. But the issues plan is just a reference layer. So you can, for example, move that issued plan above or to bring it up the plan list so you can see where the issues are and then rerun it once you've addressed those issues. I put help guidance to that in the chat as well.
Yeah, and then you can archive the issues plan once you no longer need that.
Yeah. But this top one from Richard, Jack, we could probably
Yeah,
answer together. So Richard's asked, mapping our SFI hedge payments is confusing, and LandApp does not allow for two-sided payments against the road. Seeing all the short boundary measurements when clicking on a parcel can be confusing. It would be better if it were to show each boundary length as editable. Yeah, so Jack and I have had a couple of conversations about this. We're aware that we've not got it perfect. I think I can see Ollie's on the call as well. He's given us a bit of an overview. But I'm just wondering whether Richard, you'd be happy to perhaps jump on a call with Jack to just talk through how we can improve that process. We've been made aware that it's not perfect, but we still can't quite get our heads around how to make it better. So I don't know whether Jack, we can maybe link up with Richard after the call and reach out to try and work that one out.
yeah, for sure. I think that the challenge that we have is often around the parcels and making sure that if you do have a hedge that straddles two parcels under your ownership, um, making sure that you can keep each side in the relevant parcel. But then I understand then when it's against a road, it's a bit of a different story. So it's kind of like having to find a trade-off and balance between those two different scenarios and how we make that work for the different situations, whilst also trying to stay true to the way that the SFI scheme is actually kind of operated as well, because the payment rates are done. Sometimes they're done per single side, sometimes they're done per two sides.
Yeah, thanks, Jack.
But it's
So
a good
Richard,
question.
yeah, Richard, I think we can probably pick up your email address from the registered, and if Jack, we can just take it as an action to reach out, Richard, if you're happy to do so. But please feel free if you're busy to say no. But I appreciate your question. And then similar again, Richard, probably one I can answer, Jack, is does your map measurements follow contour lines? Are they taken on the flat? So at the moment, as a mapping tool, we're two-dimensional, which means we're following Ordnance Survey master map as if it was 2D. So if you are measuring down a slope, we are not taking into account that, I guess, discrepancy between the top of the hill and the bottom. It's very much just looking across the horizontal. Um, we're thinking about how we can do some more GIS type features, but that at the moment is outside of what the Land app offers. Um, I assume, Jack, actually that would also contain in the mobile app. So if you're mapping on the mobile app, that's the
Yeah,
same, right? Because it's looking at it in two dimensions. So yeah,
yeah,
unless you've got a proper Trimble, like a proper Bluetooth device that does accurate measurements, that mobile app is just going to be a 2D horizontal distance rather than taking into account that drop in
I'm
altitude.
I'm reliant on your mobile's GPS as well if you're not using a extra device.
Yeah. Jack, one for you, I think, from Laurie. Is there any update on carrying out a BNG condition assessment in the field on Land App Mobile?
Yes, so this is something that's very high on our agenda. We're very keen to make it possible to use the baseline habitat assessment on mobile. So as part of that plan, I mentioned to enable any plan to be edited on mobile or web. We're looking to roll that out as part of that. Yeah, so watch this space. We are keen to work on it, but I think it might be more towards the end of this year or early next year that we get that out.
And I think there's two steps in that question, though, Laurie. I think our first step is just making what's available on the desktop available in LandApp, so you can change the condition. We're still speaking to UK Hab and the BNG tool wider about that more staged
Mm,
habitat conditioning process, i.e., what species am I looking out for? How do I take on that process? At the moment, we don't have access to all that information. So the template we host is kind of what we've got license for. And so we're exploring what the next phase would look like for BNG condition. So kind of two stages to that. So probably the full thing you're looking for, Laurie, won't be at the end of this year. It's more around, can you change that grassland condition to good? But the stages you go through to get to that condition answer being good is still being worked on.
great.
Hi, from question from Sam. Hi, I'm wondering if there's a direct support contact as I have an issue with my hedgerow survey map that I've been unable to solve. Is there an email address for specific issues? Thanks. Jack, can you outline submitting feedback through the mobile app?
Yeah, there is a way to do that actually. Yeah, so if you are in the mobile app, you can use the menu on the top left of the maps list, where you'd be accessing your profile or logging out. There's an option there to send feedback. So yeah, you can add send feedback there, and it will give us your email address as well, so we can always follow up with you. So yeah, you can add a comment, and it will also share us the any relevant logs that will help us to diagnose any bugs. But also, you can also contact us if you go back to the desktop and use Intercom, if you want to have more of like a live chat rather than just kind of sending some feedback off. You can come to Intercom and we can try and work through the issue together. And there's also the option to email support at the Land app as well as another way of accessing support. So yeah, all three of those methods would get in touch with us and we can follow up with you. Um, Intercom is
Yeah,
probably the most kind of interactive way of doing it, so I'd recommend that.
yeah. Yeah. So just to reiterate, in-app chat or support at thelandapp.com can be emailed directly from your inbox. A question from Nigel. The slope identifier looks as though looks useful for purposes other than those that you mentioned. Did you say that you needed a login with a number to access the data set? But maybe I'll take that one, Jack. So Nigel, just to let you know, the slope identifier is available to anyone who's on a subscription tier with LandApp, either in the standard subscription, which is starting from £10 per user per month, or within the professional subscription, which is £30 per user per month. But yeah, you do need to be on a subscription, i.e., you can't be on the free product to access that slope identifier.
But you don't need a particular SBI number or anything done, right? You can just do it for a particular uh, frame.
Good question.
I think you can.
I don't. I think you can. That's yeah. Good question. I don't think you need an SPI number to run the slope identifier.
Yeah, so if you had another plan, for example, Nigel, that you were working on, I think you can just run it against any plan boundary that you have. So if you're working on a different plan, you can just set that plan to be the boundary and then run it. It doesn't actually rely on the RPA data, I don't
Yeah.
think. Does
No,
it?
but we did.
No.
We put in an upper threshold, so I don't think you can run over 2,000 hectares of
Right. Yeah.
a single layer, just because it's quite a lot of data processing. One other point just to pick up from Lizzie that I did answer during the session was just I think Lizzie at the start was trying to follow along with your webinar, Jack. So I just let you know that session today was very much a
Oh,
showcase. It wasn't a follow on. Obviously, we've recorded the session that we'll share with all of you maybe by the end of the day. However, I have put a link in the answered question just to find the help center, and that includes things like introduction to the land app. So if you are new to the system and you saw Jack appear on a map and it was all pre-populated, there's a couple of steps to get to that point, and they're explained within the help center. So yeah, very much appreciate you coming from another bit of another software to get to where Jack was. You do need to create an account and you do need to create a map, and that's all explained within the help center.
but also, Lizzie, if there was anything in particular that you found confusing trying to pick up the way that LandApp works, I'm also really keen to hear more about that. So I might reach out to you as well to see if there was anything that was particularly confusing, because we want to make sure anyone who's new to LandApp can find it as easy as possible to pick it up quickly and get going.
Great. That's Lizzie Chance. I think there was two or three Lizzies in the call. So Lizzie Chance is the one that needs to pick up on that one,
Mhm.
just for the record. Okay. Thanks, Jack. I'll pass it over to you to finish up unless anyone else has got any more questions.
Doesn't seem to be any more, I don't think. So yeah, no, thank you so much. So yeah, as I said, like we've seen some really cool new developments there, and I hope people found it valuable to see how they work, and maybe you can now have a chance to go and play with them yourself. And as I also said, like yeah, as much feedback as possible is useful. So we've got a variety of ways of sending that. So yeah, just get in touch however you feel best works for you, and we'll do our best to keep making LandApp work for you as well as we can. Yeah, thanks everyone, and I will just stick around if anyone wants to stay around. I think, what do you normally do, Dan? People raise their hands and then we talk to them.
Yeah, exactly. If people want to come off mute and have a chat, feel free to raise your hand. But as you leave, I assume that there's a survey just about feedback about this webinar that Kathy would have set up as well. So
Yeah,
once you leave, please just spend 30 seconds to answer that pop up. Appreciate we're asking for quite a lot of feedback. We're just quite a critical time as a business about working out, exactly which direction we go in next. So all the feedback is really valuable. But thanks for your time and have a wonderful weekend when it arrives.